What draws a town to its ghosts? Why the Salem, just a small New England settlement from the 17th century, continued to command the imagination of millions around the world? Is it merely history that keeps its name alive, or is there something else lingering in the air? Something spectral, unresolved, and still whispering beneath the surface. The witch trials of 1692 have long passed, yet their psychic imprint persists. What drives the apparitions, the dreams, the whispered names in the dark? Can a place soaked in injustice become spiritually scarred, forever thin at the veil between worlds? Salem's legacy begins not with the supernatural, but with the ordinary politics, religion, and fear. In the late 1600s, Salem Village was a rigid Puritan outpost on the edge of a howling wilderness. It was a time when wolves prowled nearby woods, and the devil was believed to stalk even closer through neighbors, servants, midwives, and healers. The Puritan worldview was stark and binary, salvation or damnation, godliness or witchcraft. There was no middle ground. Misfortune was not an accident, it was an attack. And in this fearful cosmos, witches were not metaphors. They were among them, hiding, poisoning, seducing, and summoning. In January 1692, young girls in the home of Reverend Samuel Parris began exhibiting strange behaviour. Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams screamed, convulsed, and claimed to be bitten by invisible forces. Doctors, unable to diagnose, called it the work of the devil. The accusations followed swiftly. Tituba, a Caribbean enslaved woman in the Parris household, was among the first accused. Under pressure, she confessed, spinning tales of black dogs, spectral visions, and a book of witches' names. Her confession only confirmed what the town feared. Witchcraft was real, it was spreading, and it had to be purged. What followed was a community unravelled over the course of a few frantic months. More than 200 individuals were accused of witchcraft. Court records list names like Rebecca Nurse, a pious grandmother whose execution shocked many, and Martha Corey, condemned in part due to her skepticism of the trials themselves. Dorothy Good, barely 4 years old, was imprisoned and interrogated, her innocence no protection. Sarah Good, destitute and defiant, was hanged despite a plea of pregnancy. Even Giles Corey, refusing to enter a plea, was pressed to death under heavy stones. His dying words, "More weight," echo like a curse. These are not just legal cases. They are ghosts with names, stories, and final moments recorded in brittle ink and scarred into soil. Some say they have never truly left. At the site of Howard Street Cemetery, where Giles Corey met his gruesome end, visitors report groaning sounds, sudden cold, and the apparition of a heavy-set man in the mist. Legend claims Corey's ghost appears before disaster in Salem. He was allegedly seen days before the 1914 Great Salem Fire, a tragedy that destroyed over 1,000 buildings. Whether this is coincidence or omen is part of Salem's enduring mystery. But why do the dead remain here, of all places? Some paranormal theorists suggest that extreme trauma can create psychic scars, energetic imprints left by intense fear, pain, or injustice. Salem, soaked in all three, has become a textbook case. Sites like the Witch House, once home to Judge Jonathan Corwin, regularly yield unexplained EMF fluctuations, temperature drops, and recorded voices in empty rooms. The Joshua Ward House, built atop the cellar of Sheriff George Corwin, the strangler known for tormenting the accused, is infamous for incidents of visitors emerging with red finger-shaped marks on their necks. The veil is thin here, they say, especially during Samhain, the ancient Celtic festival marking the time when the boundary between living and dead is weakest. Locals claim heightened activity in late October. Children speak of women appearing in their bedrooms. Animals grow agitated. Electronics fail inexplicably. A study conducted by a Boston University measured physiological responses, heart rate, skin conductivity among visitors to trial-related sites, and found consistent spikes in response to certain names: Bishop, Nurse, Corey. Whether spirit or suggestion, Salem holds power, and yet despite its haunted past, Salem has become something else entirely. A sanctuary for modern witches, mystics, and seekers. The very symbol once used to condemn the witch has been reclaimed. Each October, thousands arrive for the Festival of the Dead, not to mourn but to connect. Shops brim with herbs, amulets, and spell kits. Workshops offer ancestral rites and crystal healing. Mediums channel messages with uncanny accuracy. Many say readings in Salem are sharper, rituals more potent, dreams more vivid. Some believe the land itself has absorbed centuries of magical energy, creating a psychic amplifier. This modern rebirth is not without irony. Where once it was death to be a witch, now it is a livelihood. And yet, this reversal carries its own spiritual resonance, a kind of redemption for those who died unjustly. Many practitioners leave offerings at the memorial wall. Others walk the proctor's ledge, confirmed in 2016, as the true site of the hangings, and speak aloud the names of the dead, restoring dignity through remembrance. Salem, once a place of silencing, has become a place of voice. Yet to understand the full arc of witch persecution, we must look beyond Salem, across the Atlantic, to Britain, where the witch hunts had raged long before America's colonies were even founded, between the 15th and 18th centuries. More than 500 people were executed for witchcraft in England alone. The most infamous figure in this campaign of terror was Matthew Hopkins, the self-styled Witchfinder General. Operating during the English Civil War, Hopkins claimed divine authority and rode from town to town, extracting confessions through torture masters' tests, pricking the skin, dunking into freezing water, and watching for a lack of tears. Hopkins was responsible for the deaths of over 100 women in just 3 years, a staggering figure. His 1647 publication, The Discovery of Witches, became a grim manual for interrogation, though eventually discredited. His influence was profound. Even after his death, rumoured to be from tuberculosis, though folklore claims he was executed by his own methods, the machinery of witch trials continued. In many ways, Salem's legal structure owed a debt to British precedent. The belief in spectral evidence, the weight of testimony without physical proof, and the idea of witches as societal saboteurs all stem from this transatlantic legacy. The punishments meted out to accused witches were often as arbitrary as the accusations themselves. In England and colonial America, hanging was the standard sentence, as burning was considered too extreme. But in continental Europe, particularly in Germany and France, burning at the stake was common, often preceded by public torture. In Scotland, accused witches were strangled, then burned to ensure their souls could not rise. Across regions, corpses were sometimes mutilated, hearts pierced, bodies buried at crossroads to prevent vengeful hauntings. The fear of witches did not end with death. It extended into the afterlife. Even in the twilight of the witch panic, the machinery of persecution refused to rest quietly. In 1685, Alice Molland became the last confirmed person executed for witchcraft in England. Her trial, held in Exeter, remains poorly documented, an eerie silence for such a final act. In the United States, the final execution for witchcraft was in 1692 itself, during the very Salem trials. After that, belief began to recede, though accusations lingered. In Virginia, a woman was tried for witchcraft in 1706, though not executed. In Connecticut, laws against witchcraft remained on the books into the 18th century. Perhaps the most chilling postscript came much later, in 1944. In wartime Britain, Helen Duncan, a Scottish medium, was arrested under the Witchcraft Act of 1735. Her crime, allegedly revealing classified naval information during a séance, though the act was long considered obsolete. authorities revived it to silence her. Duncan was sentenced to 9 months in prison, making her one of the last people punished under a law that conflated spiritual practice with criminal threat. The Witchcraft Act itself was only repealed in 1951, centuries after the last true witch hunts. Salem, then, is not merely a town, it is a cautionary monument. It reminds us of the dangers of unchecked authority, of religious extremism, and the ease with which communities can unravel when fear takes root. But it is also a place of survival. The modern witches, who now walk its streets, draped in black or cloaked in symbols of empowerment, represent a full-circle journey from persecution to pride. The ghosts of Salem are not all supernatural. Some are made of memory, of injustice, of names carved into stone and whispered across centuries. Whether or not one believes in spirits, there is something undeniably felt here. In the creak of old wood floors, in the hush of the cemeteries at dusk, in the candlelit vigils at trial anniversaries, there is presence. For the believers, Salem is a place where the past still walks. For skeptics, it is a mirror held up to history's most irrational chapters. But perhaps the haunting is not binary. Perhaps it is both and more. Perhaps the true power of Salem is that it compels us to ask, how far would we go to feel safe? Who would we sacrifice in the name of order? And when fear becomes policy, who among us is truly safe? These are the questions the dead still ask, not with words, but with wind, with echo, with silence. In the final reckoning, Salem endures not because of its trials, but because of its transformation. The town has become a living ritual, part warning, part resurrection. Its soil remembers, its stones speak. And when the veil grows thin, as it always does, the past is not buried, it is waiting.